another nail in my coffin.
Hey everybody, it's me, your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is my series, Nails in a Coffin, where we learn that with great kills, there must also come great nails. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. We're wrapping up covering Adam Green's Hatchet franchise this week with Victor Crowley. Here's a look at the average nails in a coffin for the first 3 movies in the franchise. Hatchet had an average of 1.82 nails in a coffin. Hatchet 2 slightly lower with an average of 1.7 nails in a coffin. And currently, Hatchet 3 has the lowest average with only 1.36 nails in the coffin. Real quick before I get started, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I have a goal of hitting 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we can do it, and if you can help me get to that goal, I would greatly appreciate it. I do put out a new Nails in a Coffin video out every single Friday, and I have videos going out every Wednesday. It's either going to be a debate video, Let's Nail This video, which you can be part of, or a video about my comic collection, or just maybe a list video. So at least 2 videos a week, you get, you know, pretty good stuff, I'd say. So if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get started and wrap up Adam Green's Hatchet franchise with Victor Crowley. Let's get nailing. The movie starts in a not-too-distant future in 1964, and if you get that reference, you are very a cool person. Dell and his girlfriend are having a picnic in the swamp, and he proposes to her. She gets all excited. She starts crying and gets a bloody nose, but she says yes. And when they kiss, they pull apart, and it's really kind of gross looking. They hear a distant moan in the swamp, and they go to investigate it. As they're walking through, they come upon a hunter, Bernard, who is played by Tyler Mane, Micah Mars in the Halloween franchise. He's telling them stuff. Before he can finish, he gets his head chopped off by Victor Crowley. They go running. They stop in the clearing. When they see him, Dell is trying to tell Sue to go run, but he gets impaled in the eye by Victor Crowley. He then chases her, chops her fingers off, hits her in the back with the hatchet. She falls down, and then he proceeds to start chopping her limbs off one by one as she's screaming, and then he finally finishes off by removing her head. Okay, let's get nailing. First up, we have the hunter, and I'm going to award him 2 nails in a coffin. You know, we don't know anything about him, don't know what he was hunting or why he was out there hunting or anything about it. But he did warn a couple about something, and then he had his head removed, or he knew what hit him. And I didn't see anything he did that was stupid that aided in his demise, so I'm going to give him 2 nails in the coffin. Next up, we have Dell, and I feel like he deserves 1 nail in the coffin. As soon as he knew he was in danger, he should have taken off running and continued to run until he and Sue could get away. He just saw a man's head removed and he tried to run, but stopped when Victor Crowley ran in front of him. But he stopped running to tell Sue to go run and get help. What was he planning on doing? Why wouldn't he just change direction or run back the other way or run back to where their car was? Anything to get away from this unknown killer. I can't understand why he stopped to tell her to run and why they just didn't both continue running. Don't know what his plan was, so I'm going to give him 1 nail in the coffin. Now it's Sue's turn, and I'm also going to give her 1 nail in the coffin. After she saw her new fiance killed, she just stayed there and stared at the monster, and she put her fingers up for reasons. Crowley lifted up his hatchet, and instead of running, she put her hands up, and I feel like she should have taken off running as soon as she saw Dell was killed. Self-preservation was not her strong suit, and taking everything into consideration, I know that she was in shock seeing 2 people killed right in front of her, but I feel like she should have ran and never stopped running until she could get away. But people do tend to freeze in horror movies, and it's pretty common, so when you do that, it kind of leads to your death. So I'm going to give Sue 1 nail in the coffin. We then jump to 2017, which is a decade after the events of the first 3 Hatchet films. Andrew Young, one of the survivors from the Honey Island Swamp Massacre, is promoting his new book about those events. People actually think he committed the murders, and he appears on his ex-wife's talk show to promote the book since he's going to be doing a signing the following day. Meanwhile, friends Chloe, her boyfriend Alex, and Rose, played by Laura Ortiz, who has an uncredited role from Hatchet 2, she was one of the young girls on the sleazy director's video camera. They're planning to meet Andrew at the signing and get him to film a mock trailer for their B-movie that they're making about the massacre at Honey Island Swamp. At the signing, Andrew is subjected to ridicule and abuse, much to the ignorance of his manager, Kathleen, played by Felissa Rose. She gets a phone call and she abruptly ends the signing when she gets an offer that can earn Andrew a bunch of money if he goes back to Honey Island Swamp. Chloe and company do not get Andrew to help him with their mock trailer since Kathleen rushes him out of the signing. Reluctantly, Andrew, he kind of agrees, and he gets on a plane with Kathleen, his ex Sabrina, who's not a nice person, and the rest of her crew. He's really nervous about returning to the swamp, but during the flight, while Andrew is getting his makeup done, the plane engine explodes because plot convenience. Two of Sabrina's crew are killed. The makeup artist Jay flies into a wall. Zach is sucked out the window, and the plane crashes into the swamp, killing the pilot, co-pilot. I'm not going to nail them since they died in the plane crash, and that was nobody's fault. So while this is happening, Chloe, Alex, and Rose are in the swamp trying to record some scenes for their movie trailer. Rose was looking on her phone the correct way to recite the gypsy chant that actually started the curse of Victor Crowley. Zach's body falls down in front of him, freaking everybody out, and then they hear the plane crash. So Dylan, their tour guide, ran to the sound of the crash to go provide assistance. Rose runs after him, dropping her phone in the process. Alex remains back with Chloe, and he's actually trying to calm her down. But while this is happening, Rose's phone is playing a video of somebody reciting the gypsy chant. Dylan and Rose make it over to the plane wreckage, and other than the two pilots and two of Sabrina's crew, everybody is pretty much alive. However, Casey is trapped under a seat, and she's half submerged in the water while the plane is slinking in the swamp. As this is happening, Rose's phone, which she dropped, is now playing a video of Reverend Zombie reciting the voodoo curse. Now that the voodoo curse has been recited a few times, we see water in the swamp start to bubble, and Victor Crowley is resurrected. We haven't nailed anybody in a few minutes, so let's get to it. Alex and Chloe heard some yelling, and they're walking around the swamp, trying to find the wreckage of the plane so they can help the others. They found the remains of Crowley's house from the explosion in Hatchet 3 with the memorial built next to it. A motion sensor turns on, startling Alex and Chloe, and then you hear another loud moan. And they get spooked, and the sound is getting closer, so they hide in the shack. Alex is by the opening to the shack, and the motion sensor lights are going on and off, on and off. All of a sudden, Victor Crowley appears and tackles Alex. He picks up a hammer and bashes Alex's head in. He takes the claw end of the hammer, and then he removes Alex's head. Alex is going to get 1.5 nails in a coffin. You know, hiding in the shack, I think, was a big mistake. They also moved through the swamp with no urgency. Even if they thought the screams were coming from the plane wreckage, they were both slowly walking through the swamp. And the only reason I'm not going to give Alex 1 nail in a coffin is that he yelled at Chloe to run while he was being killed. And that was selfless, and I'm going to give him credit for that. But he did make some mistakes that led to his death. He had other options that he didn't take. They shouldn't have hid inside the shack next to Victor Crowley's exploded house. You know, they got to the swamp, and I don't know why they didn't run to the car or to the boat or anything to go get some help. They were just kind of aimlessly walking around waiting for something to happen. And this was a time of cell phones, and if you're going to go to the swamp to film a movie trailer, would you not have a charged phone with you, all three of you, for reasons? I don't know. Alex, I think you're only going to deserve 1.5 nails in the coffin. Everyone else is in the wreckage of the plane, and they're all arguing what to do. Casey is still stuck under the chair, and the water is rising. Everyone is too busy arguing and yelling at each other. Joker Q, Casey's boyfriend, he's trying to tell everybody that Casey's pregnant and they have to get her up. Kathleen is having a panic attack, and Chloe shows up by one of the windows. Rose is telling Chloe to go to the door, but guess who shows up behind Rose? Victor Crowley. He follows her for a moment, and then he smashes Chloe's head through the window and drags her away. He grabs inside the plane a few times but fails to get a hold of anybody. He then drags Chloe up to this small hill, leaving her on the ground, but she's not dead yet. He's just using her as a trap to bait the others. Everybody in this plane is a freaking idiot. They all freak out when a water snake swims into the wreckage. Austin is the only one who stays calm, telling him it's just a water snake. It's not going to hurt anybody. Well, Kathleen is still having a panic attack, so she runs out of the plane, and when she does, we see that Victor Crowley is staying on top of the plane over the door. Austin looks at a door, and when he does, Victor hits him in the head with his hatchet, removing the top of his head till his brain falls out. Fun side note, I actually went to school with Brian Quinn. He was a year ahead of me when we went to PS53 and IS-24 on Staten Island. He's my favorite Joker, but that's not going to help him with the nails. However, I'm still going to give him 2 nails in the coffin. Now, you can say he wasn't that smart for looking out the door, but I'm going to give him more credit for actually trying to keep everybody calm in the plane. I think he should have punched Andrew out when Andrew was stopping him from getting people off the plane since it was filling up with water. He was focused on saving Casey, but Andrew was pretty much just being a bitch about everything. But in this franchise, 2 nails in a coffin is very good since Victor Crowley is a supernatural entity. So Q was trying to keep everybody calm, trying to focus on Casey. So that earns enough points for me. So Austin is going to go with 2 nails in the coffin. Kathleen is still running away, trying to call help, if you call that running. She's running like she has a toothpick in her butt. She stops running for a moment, giving Victor Crowley time to catch up. He immediately rips her arm off and shoves it up her. Well, yeah. He shoves it up her and it goes out, phone goes out through her mouth. Poor Angela, I'm going to give you one nail in the coffin. I don't know why she was running so weird. I don't think nobody knows how to haul ass and run in these movies. Take your damn heels off if you're going to run. Don't stop running up to 30 feet. Maybe she couldn't get a signal on her phone, but damn, she was asking to get killed here. Not much else to say in this one. She was stupid here, and those decisions led to her death. One nail in the coffin. After Victor Crowley kills Kathleen, he's standing over Chloe's body. She's not dead yet. He's looking at the windows of the plane. He makes eye contact with Rose, and he stops on Chloe's head, squashing it like a watermelon. All Chloe wanted to do was make a movie about the Honey Island Swamp Massacre. Unfortunately, it cost her her life, and I'm going to award her one nail in the coffin. She was like a lot of other people in the franchise. They don't move with any sense of urgency, and they all forget how they got to the swamp, and that they forget how to run and move. Now, one person ever tries to go back to where they entered the swamp to go try and get some help, whether it was a car, a boat, a road. In part 3, Mary Beth found her way out of the swamp from walking. I don't know why no one else could figure it out. It's like they all just ran around in circles, and they really make it easy to get killed by this monster in the swamp. One nail in the coffin. Casey's still trapped under the chair in the plane. The poor woman's been trapped the entire time. People try to help her, Austin and Dylan. All the other morons just kind of stood there. Unfortunately, the plane filled up with water and she drowned. And this is a tough scene to watch, especially with Dylan holding her hand and screaming while she drowned. Unsettling death in this horror comedy felt a little out of place when you compare it to the other deaths. I'm not going to give Casey any nails since there was nothing she could do once the plane crashed. It's not her fault everybody on the plane did nothing to try and help her other than Austin and Dylan. So I'm going to give her a pass, which is something I may introduce to Nails in the Coffin, maybe something new, like for a rare occasion where a victim dies because of other people's stupidity and selfishness with no stupid decisions on their part. Sabrina is berating Andrew, just verbally abusing him, but then Rose actually tells Sabrina the type of woman that she really is. Meanwhile, Victor Crowley, he's outside. He starts his electric sander that we've seen almost in all the other movies. And the others are in the plane. He's trying to grind his way in. He actually opens up an electrical panel, puts the electric sander on the wires, and that causes the power to come back on for reasons. So Dylan gets a distance. They have the power on now that, hey, he's going to try and go in the cockpit. He starts kicking all these wires and switches, trying to get the engines turned back on. Victor Crowley got his way into the plane while the others snuck out the back. But Andrew, he's going to go back to try and save Dylan. Victor Crowley's in the plane. He gets out of it for a second. Andrew's like, oh crap, I gotta go. But the plane engine does start up. Meanwhile, Sabrina, she takes the phone that Rose has. She wrestles it from her, and then she goes run off to hide by herself for reasons. She hides on this little boat behind this small piece of wood as Victor Crowley is slowly approaching. But the phone turns on, and guess what? Victor Crowley's there because he hears the sound. He picks up Sabrina's head, breaks her jaw viciously, drops her back on the boat, and then smashes her head off with the hatchet. Sabrina was a selfish, horrible bitch, and I'm going to give her half a nail in the coffin. I was close to 0 nails, which I've only given out twice, I believe, and they were in Halloween Kills. And I want to say that for extra special stupid in a horror movie. So I'm only going to award her 1/2 nail in the coffin. She was selfish and only cared about herself. She didn't care about anybody else. Instead of trying to figure out a way to safety, she chose to verbally assault her ex-husband Andrew like there was time for that. She took the phone from Rose and ran off on her own. Plus, she hid behind a small piece of wood while holding the phone. It's one of the dumbest things I've seen in this entire franchise. But this is the first time I'm only going to give 1/2 nail to someone. And Sabrina, you're the lucky recipient. Only one more death to go, and it's a good one. Rose is running back to the plane when Victor Crowley shows up behind her. He shoves her down this small hill, and she lands a few feet away from Andrew and Dylan. Before Victor Crowley actually can get to Rose, Andrew shoots him in the eye with the flare gun. He's being useful. Rose gets up, picks up the hatchet. Andrew's about to shoot Victor Crowley again, but Rose wants a shot first. She attempts to throw it at the monster. She says a cringy one-liner and throws it, but it lands by his feet. Andrew then tries a one-liner, fires another flare, but he misses by a mile. Victor Crowley gave both of them a, what the look are you doing? Andrew runs at him, knocks him close to the engine, but he's holding Hodges about 2 feet from the blades. Dylan tells Rose, he would have had her babies, and he boops her on the nose. He then runs at Victor, tackling him into the engine, vaporizing the both of them. These are our final nails for the Hatchet franchise, and Dylan earned himself 3.5 nails in a coffin. He sacrificed himself to save Rose, which was a woman that he just met. He was a goofy guy, but he had heart. He may not have been the sharpest knife in the drawer, but when it counted, I think he showed a lot of heart and selflessness, which is what I look for when I want to give out 3 to 4 nails in a coffin. You know, I was thinking about what else he could have done. Maybe he could have ran and go pick up the hatchet, which was by the feet of Victor Crowley, but then he would still have to hit him with it before Victor Crowley was able to pull himself out of the engine, which he probably would have done shortly. But that option had a very slim chance of working, so he did the best thing he could do in that short amount of time that he had. I even like how he told Rose he would have her babies before he popped her on the nose. And Dylan sacrificed himself to save others, and I feel like that more is deserving than earning 3.5 nails in a coffin. There is a mid-credits scene. There's a shot of a TV, and on there is a news report about what just occurred at Honey Island Swamp. We learn that Andrew and Rose were obviously the only survivors, and then we see someone is watching TV. As soon as the reporter says Honey Island Swamp, she gets up, picks up a shotgun. It's Mary Beth. She chambers around and says, "She's been waiting for you, mother." There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all my nails in a coffin for Victor Crowley. Here's a summary of all the nails I've awarded. Here's the average nails in a coffin for the films in the Hatchet franchise. Hatchet, 1.82 nails in a coffin. Hatchet 2, slightly lower with 1.7. Hatchet 3 ended with 1.36 nails in a coffin. And wrapping up, Victor Crowley had an average of 1.5 nails in a coffin. Next week will be my Golden Nail Awards for the Hatchet franchise. I'll go over my favorite kill for each nail rating. I'll also rank these films and talk about the film with the highest and lowest nails in a coffin average and why I feel those movies came in where they did. Please hit that subscribe button and feel free to share this video around all over social media. Help me grow this channel. It will really help me out. I really appreciate it, and thank you. I'll see you guys next week, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and be good to each other. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and remember, with great kills, there must also come great nails.